Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today, we have a special guest on the show. We're joined by Yazad Dalal, who's the head of strategy for HCM Cloud Applications EMEA at Oracle. Yazad, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
My name is Yazad Dalal. A lot of people call me Yaz. I'm at Oracle Corporation. We do a bunch of different things at Oracle. We do a lot of hardware and we do a lot of software. We're famous for our databases. And the last several years, we've been heavily focused on cloud software. And probably one of our stickiest and fastest accelerating software solutions is called Oracle HCM Cloud, which is an end-to-end HR system and platform for the best companies to manage the best employees. I'm the head of strategy for that business for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that's my role. I'm an American. I'm from New York. Spent the last 6 years living in Asia, in Singapore, and before that in India, and decided it was time for a change. And instead of moving back to New York, I've moved to London. So that's what you see behind me, and that's where I am today.
How are you enjoying sunny London?
It's sunny, you can tell.
Yeah, it's horrible. Well, let's jump straight in. I'm really excited about today's topic, and I'm sure everyone listening is. The topic of today's show is making work more human with AI, which is already everyone's like, "Ooh, it's just going to spark a lot of debate." And I thought, let's just jump straight in. With a question that's being heavily debated right now, which is, are jobs going away due to technology, but specifically as a result of AI and robotics? Let's focus our time
Sure.
there.
First, let's define AI a little bit in this context. When we talk about AI technology, what we often mean is things like digital assistants or AI-based bots, where it feels like you have another human supporting you. I mean, that's the whole concept behind artificial intelligence, is that in a way it's mimicking what normally only a human could provide. And
Hmm.
in a way, who wouldn't want that? It's kind of like having a virtual coworker. It's your digital twin who's there to take care of all your mundane, repeatable tasks and freeing us up as the real humans to do those things that really only a human can do. The emotional aspect, the way we treat our coworkers, being creative, daydreaming, staring at a wall and coming up with innovation or developing strategic ways to grow the business or achieve our goals or to create great art. There's a great quote that I love to repeat. It's from an old classmate of mine, although I don't know if he remembers me from high school. Nick's the editor of Wired magazine, so I
Good
wish I
shout
was as
out.
cool.
Good shout out. I'll tag him in.
Very cool guy and doing great things at Wired. He has this great quote, which I drop everywhere. The intelligence of humans is best thought of as the combination of ourselves and our machines. The answer to your question, in my opinion, is I think we're going to have a wonderful future. We have to learn how to coexist and at the same time become even more productive working in conjunction with AI. But I think we're also going to need to be prepared to be ready for this kind of future. I think a lot of the folks listening to this call need to start thinking about that. How do we start investing in systems and in learning and in setting expectations for our frontline employees that's going to prepare them for that transition?
So, what would you say to those people that are saying, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job to AI or robot?
The last several thousand years of technology advancement has shown things are always improving over time. It's not like people got replaced by the wheel, the horse, fire, in the industrial revolution. You we adapt. I think that's the positive thing over the long term. I think that there is short-term trauma. People like one of the presidential candidates in the United States is talking about this a lot and how maybe the government needs to subsidize people who might be victims of that. I think as organizations, as HR leaders, what's important is for us to prepare our people, prepare our leaders to start investing in those things that will fill those gaps so that we don't have overnight replacement of people or divisions by automation, but instead phase in programs that allow us to learn how to coexist, learn how to leverage, maybe augment our own skills to focus on more strategic human only applications,
Yeah.
while automation takes over the stuff that automation can manage better than us.
We're hearing a lot of people within our workshops, our community on the podcast talk about how technology is making us more and more impersonal, right? We're hearing this more and more now. But instead, you spend a lot of time talking about making work more human. And that's the title of this episode, after all, right? So, what does that mean? And then how does AI contribute to that?
I was making a joke a minute ago about fire and horses. Okay.
I
But if
don't
you
think that was a
think
joke. That was great examples. Like that genuinely puts it into context, because that's what I think about as well. When you look back, right, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and if you think about sort of the current version of what is high tech, that concept of computing has really only been around maybe since the Second World War, so less than 100 years. And if you think about how we engage with that modern tech, not very natural. So right now, you and I are sitting in front of a screen. People who are watching this are in front of a screen. We're kind of in this weird posture. We're using preset applications to do a pretty intense amount of data entry, regardless of what level you are in your organization. We follow very specific workflows. And we think that with AI, for the first time, people are going to be able to and are already engaging with technology in a totally natural way. Hey, Google, Alexa, Siri, we're using our voice. We're doing it on the go. We're getting helpful knowledge in the moment. We're seeking out personalized recommendations. So I think the level of engagement is higher. You start to feel cared for. You start to feel supported. This sort of AI-based experience is starting to treat humans the way another human would. So that's why we believe, and I believe, it's a way of technology finally being able to bring humanity back to work and to make work more human. Think about this. We believe that ultimately this democratizes a set of services that, I love to use this example, only used to be available to two demos: the insanely wealthy and powerful, or your senior executives, or I like to joke, babies. Because these two groups of people, they don't worry about anything. Everything's taken care of. Their schedule is set. They can act impetuously on a whim. And if they don't know something, someone's right there in their ear to whisper it to them. It's like having a bodyman who, the world leaders usually have. That's what we're seeing around the world. As more of us engage with consumer tech at that level, we're going to start having that same expectation in the workplace. So if my Android or Apple phone can tell me how many minutes it'll take to get to the next appointment in my calendar, why shouldn't I have the same expectation in the workplace? So we think frontline employees deserve to have access to the state of the art in artificial intelligence.
And I'm an extreme, by the way, and we didn't speak about this on our first call, but my entire life and home is automated. So every single light bulb in my house is Wi-Fi. Every single plug socket. If I walk in the house, I turn on the TV by my voice. I say computer turn on, it turns on.
When you leave that home environment that you've created for yourself, and then you enter another environment, don't you feel out
I
of
know where you're
place?
going with it.
What we're seeing, and I think this is universal now, billions of employees, literally billions of employees working in either white collar or manufacturing jobs, have a similar level of technology set up at home, and they're leveraging that tech on their way to work, right? On their commute, they're on the tube or they're on the train or on a scooter. And then they get to work and they put this amazing machine down on their desk or on their table, and they literally step back in time. And then they've got to spend the next 8 or 10 hours trapped in the past, and they're using slow, clunky, unintuitive systems and platforms. And at the end of 10 hours, they pick up that phone and then they literally step back into the future.
It's crazy. Yeah, you're right. I spoke to a CHRO recently. I'm not going to mention his name. And he was so frustrated. He's like, Chris, I've just started my job. On day one, I walked into the office and I was trying to get, and this is a silly example, but it just shows how frustrating it is. Like, I asked for some stationery, right? He's the CHRO of a $1 billion company. And he goes, I got told it's going to take up to 2 weeks for procurement to get me the stationery that I need and this new laptop. And he's like, I could literally go on Amazon Prime right now and order it, and it'll be with me in 2 hours. Oh, no, was it Prime Now? Prime Now, yeah, Prime Now. It'll be with me in an hour. How frustrating is that? That my outside experience, I could have this in 1 hour. I could walk across the road quicker, actually, Chris. But internally in my business, I have to wait 2 weeks because I have to go through this. No.
And by the way, those billions of employees that are on the front line are going to feel disrespected. They're getting a negative employee experience. So I think one of the challenges for a lot of employers around the world is to recognize the urgency of this, which is your systems, your workflows, your processes, they probably all work very well to deliver what you need. But what sort of experience are you providing to your people? And if your people who have the highest expectations, often correlating to your best people, leave, what happens to your business then? I think that's a challenge that everyone needs to face up to.
Within your company, obviously, you have thousands of customers all over the world. What are they most excited about in terms of adopting AI, machine learning capabilities? What are the type of questions they're asking you and coming to you with?
I'll give you a great example of one of our favorite customers here in sunny UK, as you already made fun of.
Yeah.
There's a giant retailer here called Sainsbury's, and about 3 months ago, so they're a customer of ours for Oracle HCM Cloud, and they went live with something we call HR Help Desk. This is a tool that basically brings consumer-grade customer service technology to the world of HR. If you think about it, and for those of you on the phone, if you're in HR administration or used to be or still are, the number of mundane but important questions that you get from the employee population. Hey, how much leave do I have left? Where do I find my pay slip? I need to check these benefits. I've just had this life event. How do we bring that into an automated system? There's a gentleman there who's our customer, Dan Balshaw from Sainsbury's, and he posted it on LinkedIn a few months ago. He says, we have big plans for HR Help Desk. It will revolutionize, I'm reading here, how our colleagues interact with HR, and will offer them the ability to connect with us whenever, wherever, and however they want. And I would love to admit that we gave him that to post. He did it on his own because he was super excited. And I think that last part from Dan is key. He's saying exactly what we're saying, which is our customers around the world want to provide a seamless employee experience to their people that allows them to connect whenever, wherever, and however they want. And with AI, we think we can deliver that experience.
It is about bringing the outside experience internally, right? What are the biggest challenges that you see companies are facing when doing it? Because I'm sure they come to you. Well, the first thing they have is we don't know where to get started. What's the biggest challenges that they're coming to you with?
Maybe what I'll do first is share with you some trends that we're seeing that represent some of the challenges that our customers have.
Yeah, sounds good.
We did this great study recently with an organization called Future Workplace. What we found is this is the second year in a row we did this. We surveyed 10,000 people, dozens of countries around the world, 6 languages. And the sort of headline is AI has completely changed the relationship between people and technology at work. 2 crazy things to share with you. One, we saw that more than 50% of the people who responded say that they're using some form of AI in the workplace versus 32% last year. It's a huge shift.
Wow.
The second, which is amusing but not surprising, humans are starting to use very human emotions as descriptors when talking about AI. They're using emotion-based adjectives. And if you think about it, that shouldn't be surprising, because if you start to become dependent on an AI-based tool to make you arrive at meetings on time, to remind you to wish your colleague a happy birthday, to remind you to file your expense report, your life is better.
To order my food.
Yeah, anyone that's going to make your life better, you're going to feel good about. You start to engender a level of trust, of affection. You have a reliance on something that makes you feel like they're part of your family. So we see that it's changing the relationship between humans and technology, but also between humans and humans. And here's the weird part. 64% of the employees we surveyed said that they trust AI more than they trust their manager. And it was a crazy level. In some countries, in Asia, we saw, for instance, in India, it was 89%. China was 8%. Here in the UK and Western Europe, it's in the mid-50s. Okay, and it's not that they don't trust their human managers, Chris, but what they're saying is they want AI to do the things like provide unbiased info or manage my schedule or approve my budget. What they want their human managers to do is the stuff we talked about before. Show me some empathy. Spend time with me.
Be present. Yeah.
Be present. Help us cultivate a culture here. This is sort of what we saw in this future workplace study, which is absolutely fascinating. The second thing that we're seeing in terms of trends in AI is we spend a lot of time working with a lot of partners. One of them is Deloitte. Deloitte does this fantastic human capital trends report every year. And what we're seeing, both in that report and with our customers, is if we can remove routine work through AI and automation and actually make jobs more human, that's actually going to enable people in their current jobs to advance, to rise in terms of their importance, in terms of the value they contribute. And so it's not just about AI replacing human labor with machines, but like we were talking about earlier, augmenting each of us, our entire workforce, and enabling the human work that we do to be reframed in terms of, okay, my humans are no longer moving a widget from here to here, or calculating spreadsheets that can be automated. Instead, they're working on strategic problem solving. They're trying to create new knowledge. They're being creative. And what we saw in that Deloitte Human Capital Trends report is about 41% of respondents said that they're starting to use automation extensively and across multiple functions. And that's interesting too, because once you free people up, not only can they advance in their own functional area, but they can start to take on other areas as well. The bottom line there is, and this is what Deloitte calls a super job, is that some of the most in-demand jobs, especially as we start to upskill in how we adapt to AI, some of the most in-demand jobs are going to be this concept of super jobs, where it's not that the skills of the job have changed, but the nature of your actual work has changed as well, where you have a human who, because they've got this digital twin, because they've got access to an automation tool or a form of AI, can actually start to cover not just the soft skills and some of the technical skills that they used to be able to do, but because they're augmented, they can take on more, where their leadership has a trust level that it's not just Chris working by himself on these complex things, but Chris plus 3 machines.
Yeah.
Back to that quote, the power of Chris, the power of that frontline employee, or the power of that leader is supremely more advanced as the combination of Chris and his machine.
Yeah. Now let's jump on to the next question. Now I'm thinking about all of the HR leaders that are listening right now, and how can they reimagine work to automate it and augment the workforce with robotics and AI? Because I'm sure everyone's listening to you and agreeing this sounds fantastic, but how do we go about doing it? What's the next steps? Where do we start?
This is a really common question that we hear from customers around the world. And I think in order to kick things off fast, we have to have a general appreciation or embracing of all the tools and technologies that are going to both automate the work we have to do and augment the workforce at the same time. We can't wait for automation to take place and be completely unprepared. So if we can do those things in parallel, and I think that's hard to do, that's a challenge, as you were asking earlier, is how do we automate work and augment the workforce at the same time so we can increase productivity, we can drive value for our customers and for our customer's customer. And that's really what we want to do. And in order to prepare for that, how do we right now jumpstart the integration of development, learning, and also new experiences into the day-to-day flow of work? So it's not about go take a training course and learn how to get ready for AI. That is not what we're talking about. In a weird way, that old cliche of you can't change the wheels of a car while you're driving. But that is kind of what we're suggesting, to slowly, incrementally bring in these new experiences into your normal workflows so that heuristically people start to adopt it. And we're starting to see that. So you loaded that bot up on your website. Sainsbury's has this HR help desk. Here at Oracle, we're regularly using our own digital assistant to interact with HR. So these things are already starting to happen, and we see opportunities for automation everywhere. So I think that's all good. If we're looking for an easy way to start, one of the things, and this is also in that Deloitte report, and we have I think a strong agreement, is start with integrating this with the stuff you use at work. So for a few years, the big trend was moving to what they call.
By the way, everyone listening on the podcast, he was pointing to the mobile phone, just so you know. Yeah.
I thought we were on video, right? So, but that's an easy place to start because it's obvious. Bring your own device needs to now evolve into how do we ensure that all the enterprise level software, whether it's your HR platform, your finance platform, your expenses, your sales platform, your customer, all of the enterprise software you provide to your frontline employees should be available in mobile format on a mobile device. That first step is a huge driver, not just in adoption amongst our customers, it was a huge driver in our own product development. It was the very first thing a few years ago that we addressed was we need to make sure that everything we build was mobile first. By the way, today, our whole design philosophy in our product development group had moved to AI first and is heading towards voice first.
That's my part of my strategy, by the way, here, because people always ask me, what's next, Chris? I'm like, my entire strategy now, it's even on the wall. I draw a picture of it. is to move to a voice first strategy.
We have to leverage the hardware that already exists. You know, when we talk about voice, the microphone exists on all our mobile phones.
Yeah.
So when we launched Oracle Digital Assistant, it was automatically voice enabled because it runs on messaging apps, and all messaging apps are voice enabled. It's voice to text. So we use it internally, thousands of customers around the world. They can have seamless conversational employee experiences for their frontline people. And by the way, that's what their frontline wants. So that level of engagement is an amazing place to start. It's an automatic signal to your employees that as an employer, you don't have to be a tech employer or even a cool employer to deliver cool technology. Work with a provider. In this case, I recommend Oracle, but work with a provider whose innovation accrues to you.
Yeah.
Right? Then you deliver a culture of innovation internally within your organization. You don't need to have the most cutting edge IT department. You just need to have the most cutting edge IT partner. And that's what we're trying to deliver for our customers. And we're using all this technology ourselves. So when I come into the office, for instance, I don't need to necessarily log into the system and figure out which tab I need to click on or which business process I'm going to execute and go through all that workflow. I'm just going to ask a question through my smartphone and expect that the work is going to be done, that the workflows are intuitive. I'll give you an example. Some of this stuff we don't even realize should be possible. If you're an HR person or a people leader and you want to promote someone, whether you work in a small organization or a large, invariably in your HR system, it'll say, great, which employee? And then it either lists all your employees in the company or gives you a search box. If I have 5 people on my team, I don't have the right to promote anyone except those 5. Why doesn't the system just show me the 5 people I'm allowed to promote? These kind of little intuitive things. And some people say, oh, that's not AI driven. Well, it is, because we're asking the system to think. Yes, it's based on certain rules that are written in, but that's what artificial intelligence is. It's leveraging data based on rules that a human has input to think. Should Chris be allowed to promote anyone in the organization? No, Chris can only promote one of these 5 people. So only show Chris those 5 people. Small little incremental elements like that are what make AI really powerful. And that's where it starts to feel human. Oh, the system gets me. It knows who I am. I only have 5 people.
Yeah. I had a question from Vivav. He said, how do you think this is going to change decision making in HR when it's going to be influenced by AI, considering it's changing so rapidly?
It's a great question. Thank you. What we saw in that survey that we did with Future Workplace is this is an example of an area where employees want to see more decision making done by automation. That rather than trust the gut instinct of a manager or the bias of a manager, allow the system to make the right determination based on data. That's what we see in the survey report. The other side to that coin, however, is, and you see this in a lot of leadership literature, gut instinct does have a role to play, that a machine will not always be correct based on pure data because the data is only as good as what's put in.
Yes. Yeah.
And the rules that are written for the AI system, the algorithm,
Could
for
also be
instance,
biased.
correct.
Yeah.
You wrote it. So now if let's say there's a toxic manager and I don't trust his or her instinct and I'd rather have AI deliver a decision, well, if it's that toxic manager or their culture's input that wrote the algorithm, maybe you're screwed either way. So I think there's 2 sides.
Benefits to both, right? So you remove it's funny because you remove the unconscious bias by having the AI take over, but then you also have the unconscious bias from the person who wrote the code. So it's an interesting dilemma there. It's kind of a bit of a blurred line.
But I think that's where it's important to not get tricked into thinking, oh, I want to automate this one process.
Okay, yeah.
We're big believers that AI and machine learning are highly dependent on the maximum amount of data possible and the cleanest data possible. And that when you apply AI to a set of processes, that application should be as broad as possible. So to give you an example, when we think of HR, we think of the main HR functions, but one of them that employees think is in HR is actually in finance. That example is expenses. So in order to have a smart AI-based HR system, you also probably want to have your finance system powered through artificial intelligence. And ideally, that's going to work best when it's on a common platform.
Yeah.
when we're able to do that, ensure that the data is clean, make sure that our systems are all speaking to each other, and we believe that the best way to do that is on a single platform, then your risk for bias goes down because you have more control over the inputs and you have greater consistency.
Some people in the comments are saying as well that one of the advantages of AI is that you can easily unprogram the bias, whereas in humans it's a lot more difficult. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. We don't pay enough attention to institutional knowledge and institutional memory and the role it plays in the workplace, in our decision making, and in our biases. So when I joined Oracle 4 years ago, I remember sitting in a meeting and someone mentioned a company in the HR ecosystem, and I couldn't believe what came out of my mouth. I said, "Oh no, but do we really want to work with those people?" And I couldn't believe I said it because I'd never heard of that company 6 weeks earlier, was new to enterprise technology to begin with. How did that come out of my mouth? And I realized subconsciously, sitting in other meetings and other conversations, enough people had said something like that that it became a belief as well. Totally unwarranted, by the way, and we were all wrong, and that was a fantastic company. I'm lucky that I caught myself. It was only because I was new. How do we unprogram those 4 or 5 other folks that I heard it from, who probably also had picked it up through some type of osmosis? It's harder to do that with humans. It's supremely easy to do it with machines.
Yeah, and it's good that you was self-aware enough to check yourself.
One of my favorite rap lyrics, Chris: "Check yourself before you wreck yourself."
I'm going to quote you with that now and just post that on LinkedIn. Before we wrap up, what are some of the recommendations then that you would give to HR leaders on how to ease the AI adoption process for their employees? As we spoke about the businesses, but what about the AI adoption for the employees themselves?
I think for the folks listening to this conversation, maybe I'll share 4 ideas that we think will ease that transition or the adoption of AI. And we talked a little bit about it already in terms of introducing it incrementally. So 1, let's immediately enhance the employee training that we provide in AI. That means looking at what our current training opportunities are, recognizing where we need to make further investment, and put that training infrastructure in place so that it's easy for employees to acquire those new skill sets. We can't just put it out there and hope that they download it from the library. It has to be something that can guarantee adoption fast of that training so that people immediately start that learning. I think the other sort of myth around AI is that it sounds sophisticated. It sounds complicated. People don't know whether it's a thing or a concept. Too many times we hear from customers, "Show me your AI." And
I love that.
And,
okay.
I would suggest that any organization that says we want to show you our AI is doing it wrong.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from Arthur C. Clarke. Remember, Arthur C. Clarke is the guy who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey. I love this quote. He says, "The most significantly advanced technologies should be indistinguishable from magic." That's a great quote.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is you can't show someone your AI.
Yeah, of course.
You can't show someone this technology that's going to better your life. So I think the second piece of advice is let's not overwhelm our people with the sophistication of AI. Let's start with smaller, easy to automate tasks and then build from there. Rather than saying, okay, we're going to deliver this big magical system, people get scared. It sounds complex. Start with some small use cases. It could be rolling out a conversational UI. It could be, like we were talking about earlier, experimenting with digital assistants or using chatbots for candidate experiences. Yeah. One of the things that we've delivered is now some of the largest employers in the world who use our platform, when you apply for a job to those companies, you're not, as a candidate, going to be in a black hole. There's a chatbot as a candidate, not even an employee yet, where you can say, "Hey, what's the status of my application? Hey, did you guys get my resume, my CV, or not?"
Yeah.
And where the chatbot can go into the system and say, "Please check your email. We just sent you a note inviting you in for an interview." Or, "Please check your email. Unfortunately, we aren't able to progress, but we've shared more information in that email to you." Either way, I feel good. I got some feedback, which has never existed. It's one of the most frustrating things about applying for jobs.
By the way, Tom Farr's in the chat. By the way, he said he loves he's really enjoyed the episode. You said you've made him laugh as always. For anyone listening right now, Tom Farr's in the chat. I'm going to put you on the spot, Tom. Tom's actually recently gone through this process with Oracle, right? And adopted Oracle HCM. So if you have any questions, Tom's your man, because he's a practitioner who's delivered it. So sorry, Tom, for all the LinkedIn messages you're about to get. But if you want a first-hand perspective of someone who's worked with Yazad and the team to deliver this in their business, message Tom on LinkedIn as well.
Don't over-inundate him, but Tom Farr is with Arqiva, and yes, we're extremely proud to have Arqiva as one of our Oracle HCM Cloud customers. And hopefully what I'm saying resonates with them and with the thousands of customers that we have around the world. Let me share two more thoughts just around what can we do after we get off this call. So we went through two more. This one might sound funny. Allow your employees to experiment. The more they can experiment, the more they can kind of fool around with emerging technology, the more experience they're going to have with it, right? This is why, for instance, your children or your younger coworkers seem always perennially more adept at technology than you do. It's because they've been playing around with it since they were kids.
Yeah.
So if we are in the kids stage with this emerging technology, all of us, let's play around with it. So allow our employees to experiment. Because by the way, not only does that help them learn, but that helps the machines learn as well. The more people interacting with artificial intelligence and machine learning, that is the definition of machine learning, the more the systems learn how we act, how we operate, and then can respond accordingly. The fourth sort of recommendation around how to ease into AI adoption is to start collaborating on new ways to work. Every one of us is going to be impacted by AI, whether it's your 20-year-old apprentice or the 5 generations ahead senior leader who still prints out all their emails. All of us are going to be impacted by AI. So it's a responsibility for all of us to think about, okay, how's this going to impact my business model? How's this going to impact my employee experience? How am I going to use this technology that's being given to me to deliver a better employee experience for myself and to my people? If we can start to collaborate on how that should look rather than depend on the leadership of our organization or depend on what a technology company says you should be doing or not, let's start to think about that on our own. One of the things I'm very proud of at the organization for whom I work is 80% of the innovation that we deliver in our product every year comes from customer feedback. So it's really important to observe and record the feedback from the folks who use our services. Today, if I add up all the employees of all the Oracle HCM Cloud customers in the world, it's nearly 30 million people. This is fantastic for us. But every day, we can start to understand what 30 million employees of some of the best companies in the world are doing with the technology that their employers are providing. If we kind of handle this transition right, people's jobs get elevated and enriched as AI takes over some of the more mundane tasks. We start to see this rise of super jobs. Rather than getting replaced, people actually get more responsibility, move up faster. I think that's pretty exciting.
Well, I think you've answered pretty much most of people's questions now, without even realizing. I had one question, but I think you kind of answered it. But Bass asked, any advice for companies that are based in regions that are less robust with technical infrastructure or industries who want to move forward in this, but they're traditionally a company that doesn't have a great technology infrastructure?
One of the big misconceptions, I think, is that high tech can only be adopted by the most developed markets or the most advanced industries. Our customers have proven that this is completely false. I mentioned to you, I spent a significant part of my career in Asia. While you would imagine correctly that countries like Korea, Taiwan, China, Australia, India, Japan, very advanced.
Yeah.
We have a customer in Switzerland, financial institution, heavily focused on security, as you can imagine, 60, 70,000 employees, and some of them probably in the HR system on a regular basis. Compensation is very important to them. robust users of our platform, I would say. And we have a customer in a warehouse outside of Dhaka in Bangladesh that makes $5 t-shirts. And they and the 1,500 or so folks at sewing machines making those t-shirts are using the same Oracle HCM Cloud system to manage their people and their processes. The difference is the $1 million banker in Zurich or London or New York is using it perhaps at a different level.
Yeah, of course.
But the person who doesn't even have a computer, frankly speaking, may have varying levels of literacy themselves, is still able to collect a PDF of their payslip and have it printed out in the factory. And if that's the main requirement that they have, then we're satisfying it using the same system.
And also, I'm sure most of them have the mobile anyway, right? And so they'd have it on the mobile. So,
and look, from a cost perspective, because I'm anticipating what a follow-on question would be, how do they afford it? It's because we're democratizing the system to what our customers need and want.
yeah.
So we make sure that the super user organization that has tremendous requirements are investing at a level commensurate with what they need.
Makes sense.
And those organizations that want to provide a modern employee experience and don't require a million bells and whistles, that they're investing at a level commensurate with those requirements.
Yeah.
And those requirements are sometimes more high tech because they may not have computers for their people. Their people need to be able to interact with HR through text message. That's what we've built. And it delivers a great employee experience for them.
Before we wrap up, there's one parting piece of advice that you could give to everyone. What would that be? And also, where's the best way for everyone to connect with you? If they have any questions, they want to reach out to you personally, where can they get in touch with you?
So a couple questions there. One, we have an expectation as employees, as managers, as leaders, that's driven today by our consumer tech. So start with that. I think generally speaking, we're at a level now, every smartphone user in the world has a higher expectation of technology than they've ever had before. And generally, I would sum it up as this, because we're not all tech experts. Whatever I think my phone should be able to do, it should do. That's the definition of meeting an expectation, right? When WhatsApp decided to get rid of that X in order to close a photo, our expectation changed overnight. If you were a WhatsApp user, you only swiped. The next time you used an app that still used the X, frustrating experience. Your tech expectation had risen, even though you're not a tech person. So I think to me, the first thing, most important thing to do is look around your own organization. Do our current systems do everything we think, if you're a non-tech person, we think it should be able to do? And if the answer is no, you should immediately, whether it's you or someone in a more senior leadership role, needs to recognize that, acknowledge it, and then seek out a partner who can provide a single platform where every 3 months that innovation accrues to you as the employer by delivering a more modern employee experience to your people. So I think that's the most urgent thing. And I mentioned customer feedback before. I would love to hear from the folks who are on this call the answer to this question. What is the one thing that you wish a smart HR system could do that would make work more human for you and your people? I would love to find out your answer to that question. And of course, if you, Chris, you asked me how to get in touch. If you would like to learn more about what we're doing here at Oracle HCM Cloud, very easy, go to oracle.com/HCM for human capital management, oracle.com/HCM.
Fantastic. Well, look, yes, thanks so much for taking the time out to join us. You're definitely giving us some actionable advice and got us thinking a lot and giving us some great steps as well. Because a lot of times on this topic, people talk a lot, but there's not many actionable steps. So thank you so much for providing some actionable steps for everyone as well. Apart from that, Yaz, thanks again for joining us, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure joining you today.